Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's CMM Insight Webinar in association with WorkNest. Today's session will break down what well-led really means under the new CQC Framework, where services commonly fall short and what inspectors are actually looking for. We really encourage you to ask questions throughout the session, which you can do by using the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Please bear with us as we respond to those, and any that we don't get to, we'll do our best to directly answer after the session. This webinar will be recorded and will be available to view on the CMM website in the coming days, along with the slides being shared. So I'm now going to hand over to our hosts, Julie and Robin, who will introduce themselves and get things started.
Hello, my name's Julie Walton and I'm Head of Health and Social Care Compliance here at C4Q, and my colleague.
Hi, good morning. I'm Robin Drury. I'm Head of Operations at Care for Quality at WorkNest. We're just waiting for the slides to be loaded. I believe there is a small technical hitch, as there always are on these things. And there we go. Perfect. Thank you so much. So welcome to the Well-Led in the CQC Framework webinar today. What we will cover, next slide, please. And what we'll cover today is what well-led means and how Regulation 17 actually applies in practice. What are inspectors actually looking for? Where are services commonly falling short and where are improvements needed? And those practical steps to actually improve your leadership, your governance, and your organisational culture at your services. So who are we? Well, we are a part of WorkNest Care for Quality, and WorkNest as a whole support care providers across the board with HR, employment law, health and safety, and compliance expertise. We help organisations reduce risk, strengthen their governance, and operate with confidence. Our specialised team works alongside the care providers to ensure they're inspection ready, well governed, and confident when regulators visit. So why can you trust us? We have national compliance experts within the care sector, with many different specialisms as well. We have real CQC insight with people that have worked within the CQC, so it's not just theory, it's things we've really learned over the years. And we're a gold partner to Care England 2024 to 2025. And we can provide practical hands-on support, so not just the theory and the trainings, but we can do hands-on support from preparation all the way through to post-inspection and everywhere in between, really. So shall we start? I think if we just start with a quick poll would be a really good way. So how well do you understand what the CQC is looking for under the well-led area of the framework? So we've got 4 options here: that you have a clear and confident understanding, number 1. Have general understanding, your understanding is limited, and you're unsure what inspectors specifically expect. So we'll just give that sort of just under a minute for everybody to log their answer, and then we'll see where we're at. Just a few people left to vote. Get those last answers in and see what the results are. Lovely. Oh, wow. A large 71% have gone for option 2. I have a general understanding, but some gaps remain, which makes sense and why we're here. 10% have a clear and confident understanding, which is excellent. And then following on with 15% the understanding is limited and 4% that are unsure entirely. So perfect. Well, that leads us on to Julie then to help us with this area of well-led. If we can move on to the next slide, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hello. Right. Well, hopefully, those of you who are not sure, you'll walk away today with a little bit more understanding. Now, this slide really talks about Regulation 17, good governance. But what I want to say to you right at the very beginning, whether you're a provider, leader, senior leader, registered manager, or somebody who's in charge, your responsibility and your duty is not just to comply with Regulation 17. Your duty and responsibility is to comply with all of the regulations and fundamental standards. Yes, we're going to err towards Regulation 17, particularly in this talk, because it's a very supportive regulation for you to help, gosh, that was a bit of a blip, wasn't it? To help you organize and get yourself structured and work on where your areas of weakness might be. It's also fantastic regulation for an inspector. And I will explain why that is in a moment. But what I would recommend to you right from the very beginning is please try and get some time to go and visit the regulations themselves. We teach a lot of well-led registered managers and manager trainings and above. We do a lot of well-led assessments. And I can assure you that Regulation 17 quite often is responsible for a lot of the shortfalls that go on. And we'll look a little bit more into that. So it has so much into it, even now, even though I do it on a regular basis. I make sure I go back to Regulation 17 so that I keep myself on track, still making sure I'm up to date. And it's always best to go to the very latest regulations that you see, because sometimes little amendments take place so that you're looking at the most recent regulations. Haven't really changed. Well, they've not changed. The 5 key questions, which we'll look at in a second, haven't changed. So we've just plucked out these 4 areas. Because Regulation 17 covers such a lot, it's surprising when you look at it what it does cover. But basically, you're going to be needing to assess, monitor, and improve your quality and safety of services. Monitor and mitigate the risks. That's everything from health, safety, and people's welfare, including staff welfare and people who visit your establishment. Maintain accurate, complete, contemporaneous records, and please include in that accurate records, timely records, patient records, and meeting data protection legislation. Establish systems to seek and act on feedback from service users and others. And at this moment in time, I would say to you that it's really, really important going forward in the updates to CQC assessment framework. That continues to be really important. So it really is, your systems need to be structured. You need to be very consistent in what you do. Inconsistencies scream out at an inspector. You need to make sure that your systems are embedded. People understand what they're about, what their role is in them. And by the time an inspection comes along, you should be able to have some evidence. Next slide, please. What does well-led means now? Hopefully all of you will be familiar with the 5 key questions, which is the basis of the CQC assessment framework. It's used both at inspection and also at registration. So the 5 key questions should be familiar with you, but Regulation 17 is there, well-led. And as I said previously, you do need to comply with all the regulations. But one of the things around Regulation 17 is that aspects of every single regulation and fundamental standard within those regulations will have a role in part of Regulation 17. Why do I say this? I'm saying this because if an inspector goes and inspects an organisation, whether it's a care home, supported living, domiciliary care, GP practice, they will be looking at certain aspects. Maybe we're moving back to key questions or something of that nature going forward. But they'll be looking at specific things such as safeguarding, staff training, that sort of thing. What they will be doing is reporting and making judgments about those particular key questions. But if they find that actually this is not necessarily something that's happening once, we're finding it twice, we're finding it 3 times, or we're finding it in different areas, you sit back and you think, actually, is this a problem at delivery end? It may well be a problem at delivery end, but is it also about a failing in the reporting system within your organisation? It could be, let's just say for a very, very simple example, if you had a medication fridge and your temperature checks were not being done regularly, or there were gaps, or they went out of range and nothing was done of it, Number one, yes, the problem is, are the medications in that fridge effective and safe? Number two is this a system reporting governance failure? Because your checking list is not telling you that there is a problem. Because if there wasn't a problem, the CQC wouldn't have noticed it when they arrived. So when you start to think about your various areas of practice and your systems in place, it is about what is it telling you that's helping you sleep at night? What is it telling you that actually, there's a bit of a problem? We need to act on it. And what is it that is telling you that we've got a big problem and we need to escalate this very quickly? And all those are part and parcel of key Regulation 17, but it is very, very important in well-led. It isn't just about having a competent registered manager, although that's really important. It isn't about you having a system of policies. It is about you having systems and processes in place to make sure that you are able to understand what's happening in your service. Now, well-led, key question itself is not just about having key systems and processes. We're going to concentrate on them mainly in this talk today, because it's very good evidence for you and it's very important for you anyway. But well-led in itself just covers so many things. It covers your leadership. It covers, how you collaborate with your staff, how you consult with your staff, how you collaborate and consult with your service users, how you talk to partners, how you deal with other people outside. So we'll talk about that in a little while. Next slide, please. Yeah. Most services have a vision and values, and the very, very good ones will have systems and processes in place right through from recruitment, selection, induction, training, communication, consultation, which will constantly look at and remind everybody that we're a value-based organisation. So it's easy to have a vision, it's easy to have a set of values, but if they're not understood by the people who are providing the care on a regular basis, then it's not necessarily helping you provide that patient-centred care, service users-centred care, personal care directly. So it's really important. And when CQC come to inspect you, they will be ensuring that they have visions and values are something that's embedded within your policies, your practice, your communications. So that's a really massively important. It's a bit like if you're deciding to make a journey. If you're deciding to go somewhere, you don't just put into sat nav, do you? Just take me somewhere. Well, you might do, but I've never seen it. I don't know where it would take you. But you would have an idea of where you want to go. And this is all part of your vision, your business strategy, and this is also about your values. Part of deciding where you want to go is deciding how are you going to get there. Are you going to go by car, train? Do you have multiple different transport arrangements? And then you go on to think, what else do we need to make sure that our strategy, do we have objectives? Do we have goals? Are they shared with our staff? So it's very important that everybody's on the same page about where you're hoping to be, what you want to be. Do you want to be the best of what your service can be? What your values are. So it's a value-based organisation. But what does that mean in reality? How are you making sure your staff and people who use your service and their relatives, advocates, and local community understand you? What helps you do that is having strong governance systems, which then help you identify and manage any potential risk on that missions journey. Vitally important, and will be one of the things that remains important going forward with CQC, always has been, is that you have a culture of openness, learning and accountability. That has not changed. And you can check that out in lots of ways. That's very much about, when they come to visit, they'll talk to staff, but you can talk to staff. You can keep checking out with your people whether they feel safe and comfortable to raise concerns. And it's about yep, people raise concerns, but if you don't do anything about it, yes, of course, you investigate and there are once, twice here and there, might not necessarily be the concern you thought it was, but generally speaking, there's a lot of learning can come out of that, as equally important as suggestions from staff. So it's really important that whatever the staff bring to you or others bring to you, that it's looked at and that the learning is so important. The CQC are very, very keen to look at learning from all sorts of information. And it's about your accountability. Because if you pass something that's a danger, you do nothing about it, or part of your role is to oversee something and you don't do it, then somewhere along the line, your accountability is going to come into question. So what CQC will expect from you when they come to your service is that you understand your service. You know all about how it works, you know what your systems are, and you are in a really good position to identify this is really working well. Not so well, we need to do a little bit of this, so we're going to make an improvement plan, and that if something is really high risk, that you identify it as quickly as possible, and everybody knows their role in that. And that everything you strive for is, remember, your vision, might be a mission statement, that you're striving to meet that direction of travel. You want to get there. You want to, everything you do to help you improve and become the best of your service. So can you slide forward, please, Anna?
I think we're just going to do a quick poll actually now, Julie. So let's have a look at who holds the primary responsibility for implementing and improving well-led compliance in your organisation. So we're looking, is it senior and board level leadership? Is there a governance or compliance manager function? Maybe HR? Is it your registered manager, your services managers, or is it a shared responsibility across multiple teams? Or are you unclear? So if we have a minute or so just for everyone to answer that for us, that'd be great. And that's hopefully get us on to our next topic around this area. Lovely. Just wait for the results to come through for us and we'll Lovely. So, 50% of people said registered managers and service managers hold the primary responsibility in their organisations for implementing and improving well-led compliance. Closely followed by 37% said it was shared across multiple teams. And then there was small amount of percentages spread across the rest. So that is very interesting, actually, that 50% said mainly the registered managers or service managers, Julie. Shall we move on to the next slide and take it from there?
Please. So what are they looking for? This slide just gives you one small example, really. And it's really just to emphasize to you that part and parcel of systems and processes, and that includes, it doesn't just mean audit. We're not talking just about audit here. Audit is a great tool, but it's just one tool. What we're talking about is things like you go walkabout in your service, you do spot checks, you get to know your teams better, you understand through observation, staff team meetings, staff consultations, very much about what people who use services are saying to you, what complaints telling you, what is really good practice that you all want to celebrate and share with one another. There's a whole host of things that is part and parcel of well-led. But here's just one that's very much quite common. It is quite common that you will find, and people don't necessarily appreciate that they're saying something that might be taken in a negative way because they may not necessarily mean it that way. But if you ask a person that they identified about a particular problem, and they identified it in January, and they turn around and say, "Yep, our systems people told us, whether it came from a freedom to speak up whistleblower connection, or whether it came up from an audit, whether it came from an incident investigation, if it's told you there's a problem, you've already started an improvement action plan, and you can then show that, then that really is a very strong response, and it shows that you're on it, that you know what's happening in your service. You don't really want the CQC to come in and say something like, I wasn't really aware of that, and that's the first time I've heard of it. We'll look into it. Because what that will say in itself is, well, if you don't know about it, perhaps and most likely there's something in your system that is not working. There's a weakness somewhere. It could be in the reporting, it could be confidence in reporting, it could be the audit hasn't been done correctly, it could be a host of things as to why it's not on your radar. But if it's not on your radar and it takes the external regulator to come in and point it out to you, you can see that doesn't necessarily give the best impression that you want to give. It is about being very, very aware of your environment, very aware of your service, the standard of care, standard of concerns, all those things. And that, you know, we are people, we work in organizations where people are working, and we look after people. Something is not always going to be perfect, and that's fine if we make sure we learn from it and take action against it. Next slide, please. Right, so what inspectors are looking for. Before I start saying this, one of the things I want you to take away with you today is that this is really helpful. I hope it's helpful for you when you're preparing for your next inspection. But actually, really at the heart of this is we want you to feel that you know you want to be well led anyway, because it's what you should be. You want a service that's well led because you have a duty of care to your service users, you have a duty of care to your staff, and you have a responsibility, like an ambassadorial kind of responsibility, to represent your organisation externally to other parties. So being well led is about your service, not necessarily because the regulator is going to come in. It's very helpful to have evidence to show the CQC that that's how your standard is, and that you know you can take some learning, and you may not be perfect in everything that you're working on it. But it's also about you realizing I have a duty to comply with all the regulations and the fundamental standards. And so this is very about you, really, about you getting it right, as well as impressing a regulator. So one of the things, as I said before, with the medicines fridge is such an easy one, and most places have a medicine fridge or something similar. If you're in supported living, it might be a slightly different arrangement, but there will be medications that need temperature control. So you have a system that should identify this problem. Your system then should look into it. Now, root cause analysis, that sort of thing, or your investigation procedures, how you choose to do it. And then there should be an action that comes out of it. Generally speaking, when we do our mock inspections, quite often one of the things that comes out, and it certainly comes out when we do our well-led ones, is generally speaking, most places are pretty good at identifying issues. May not be so good on the quality of the paperwork, but that's another story. And they'll do an investigation and they'll do an action, so that you know they know something's happening. So most people have some system or other that's telling them what's happening in their service. What quite often isn't so good is the improvement action that you've put in at 3 there is not necessarily measured. It might be measured the first time, might be measured the second time, but generally speaking, people tend to fall down on, yeah, we looked at it and it did what it said we needed to do. And then, of course, you're incredibly busy and things slightly fall down the agenda, or other things come in and take attention. And it's going back, and when you make changes, whether it's from an investigation of a complaint, an incident, safeguarding, whatever the investigation is, or results of an audit, or a staff raising a concern, it's very much about closing that circle. And CQC are very, very much drawn to being part of the improvement agenda for health and social care. And they particularly want to see what learning you've done and how you're continuously looking to improve those services. So you need to remember that it's not just about identifying problems and issues, and putting an action in place, but it's, did it do what we needed it to do? Sometimes it doesn't always work first time because other things have happened and you might have to tweak what you do. That's fine. Tweak what you do, start another action plan or amend the one you've got, and then go back and see if it's embedded, because that's how you really drive improvement. And you will be able to produce so much evidence to CQC by just giving examples of that will hopefully assure them that you have the right systems and processes in place. It is about continuously improving. Next slide, please. So we've really talked about this. What I would suggest that you do is take 10 minutes, not now, obviously, but take 10 minutes and look at the data sources that you've got in your organisation. Just take 10 minutes and list. You don't have to do it all in once, just over, a couple of days. List, where am I getting all my information from? And do I feel confident I'm getting all the information I need? What are the sources? Is it service user meetings? Is it complaints? Is it feedback from staff? Is it a staff survey? Whatever it is, so that you at least have an idea of where your sources are. And then ask yourself, do we use this information? This slide particularly concentrates perhaps more on an investigation sort of thing, but it is, are we making the most of that source of information, or is it actually, it doesn't really give us anything? Do we need to change it and do something different? So it's well worth the exercise of just taking that 10 minutes out and having a look at that, because it is, as we went back to that circle in the previous slide, it is about that continuous improvement, making sure if there's a shortfall, 1, you're aware of it, 2, you're doing something about it, and 3, you're checking that it has made a difference in practice or whatever it is that the problem was. Next slide, please. What inspectors are looking for culture. Now, I think you'll find that going forward, and it sort of increases over the years how important culture is, and it hasn't changed, it won't change going forward, because the culture in your organisation is very key, is in the well-led, and it's very much about how staff feel about feeling safe. And you've probably heard about people making sure their environment is a very psychological, safe environment. That means I can just tell you I've seen this and I know I'm not going to get any retribution by raising it, or I've got a concern or a suggestion for improvement, that it's a safe environment for us to raise and have chats about things together. Those sorts of things are in place. So it's really important. So what will CQC do? Obviously, they'll look at what external providers are saying about you, if they've had any concerns about how things are being managed from a problem point of view and resolving that problem. They will look at potentially incident reports, investigations, complaints, safeguarding, those sorts of things, but they will speak with staff. And going forward, we attended a session the other day, and the emphasis on people's views, people use services, staff views are going to be incredibly important. They've been important, particularly service user views have been important for a long, long time. But staff views are increasingly very important to an assessment. So speaking to staff, so you then have to think to yourself, how do we make sure staff are doing their job they know? That's your policies and procedures, making sure, because remember, that's how it tells you what you want us all to do, and that they're up to date and everybody can access them. And it's about making sure people feel very comfortable to raise concerns, make suggestions. So we've looked about your team meeting minutes and look at team construction and what consultation, what's the collaboration going on. Do you listen as a management team? Can you show whereabouts that you actually go out and listen? Do you join a team meeting? Do you go out visibly and speak with staff directly? What you really want is people to feel valued. We all want to feel valued, don't we? And you could do that in a number of ways, such as a reward scheme or celebrate some fantastic practice, which you then circulate amongst the rest of the team. Next slide, please.
Just do another quick poll if that's okay, please, Judy.
Mm.
So lovely. How likely, sorry, do you think the well-led key question is to negatively impact your next CQC inspection rating? So if everyone could pop in their answers to a poll, so very likely they've got quite significant areas of risk. Somewhat likely they do have some areas of concern at their own services. Unlikely they're confident or unsure. Lovely, Julie. While we're waiting for the answers, I wonder if we could just circle back to the last poll. And 50% of the people thought that the registered manager held the main responsibility in their organisation for the governance. What do you feel about that? How about other leaders and the providers, the directors? It's not all on the manager's head, is it?
Yeah, to be absolutely honest, if you're looking at it on a broad point of view, obviously the provider level, that's your I mean, depending on the size of the organisation, it might just be one care home, for instance, or one domiciliary care service. Obviously, the providers themselves have a responsibility. And so their responsibility is to making sure that managers are doing their job properly, but also have the support and resources to do their job. So yes, you've got certain things that's absolutely the manager's responsibility. And it's very, very clear what a manager's responsibility is in many ways, because you're doing the daily carrying on, as they say in legal language, you're carrying on a day-to-day basis the regulated activities that you've got. But you should not be alone if you've got directors, senior team. You should have that support for resources and also that very important escalation of risk. But what I would also say is the very best organisations I've visited have been where staff themselves recognise they are also responsible. They all each have a duty of care. Yeah. We're all ambassadors for our own organisations. If we do something silly or something fantastic, you know, it does impact the organisation as a whole. So yes, there's legal responsibilities, managerial responsibilities for the registered manager and the provider, but everybody who works in care has that duty of care.
And
so I think it's very much those vision and values. So yes, I think you've got different levels, different responsibilities, different perspectives, but don't forget people who work in services also have a role to play.
Lovely, thank you. So answers to these polls, very split actually. So 38% felt they were quite confident in this area actually, but also 38% had areas of concern, and with 10% feeling there is some significant risk that they need to address. So you're in the right place. Next slide, please.
Right, so let's have a quick look at sorts of things. Obviously, it's a snapshot. We can't do a great deal in the short space of time that we have to talk to you. It's commonly, yeah, those governance and oversight failures. If you remember, if you say, thank you very much, CQC, for pointing that out. We didn't know it. We'll get onto it. It's not really great, is it? And obviously that would depend on the seriousness of the risk. Hopefully it's not a big risk. Risk management, clearly you need to really have some very strong, robust risk management systems in place, because risk is firing at us from all directions, isn't it, really? From the individual person in the care plans and personal risk assessments, from lifting, moving and handling, nutrition, etc., right the way through to the building being fit for purpose, right the way through yourself managing a risk register or something similar to make sure that you are on it with all the appropriate reviews and decisions. Quality monitoring gaps, yes. these, you often see quality monitoring gaps in inspection reports, and we've seen it in our mock inspections. And it's generally quite often, when people are really incredibly busy, the things that start to fall a little bit tend to be on the monitoring side. Culture and accountability failings, yes, and I think you'll find that over the last few years, particularly, we have absolutely seen a growth in more services falling down on the culture side of it, and accountability failings. People have not really been either competent to do their role, or you haven't got systems in process to support you doing your role. But culture, it's going to be one of those things I think you're going to need to get to grips with if you haven't got to grips with it now, because it remains one of the key things in well-led. Next slide, please. Right. So there's a slide on here, and it just gives you a couple of examples where, risks aren't controlled, ineffective outcomes aren't monitored, responsive feedback and complaints aren't acted upon. Now, remember, you should have, as a manager or a senior manager or director, you should have the ability to have this helicopter view of your service. And that's because you have your systems and processes that's giving you information. You are out and about and visible to see what's happening in your service for yourself. You are able to get training and support to enable you to keep yourself up to date with what is happening. Please make sure, I'm sure you all are, but make sure that part of your horizon spotting what's changing in the outside world, that you are keeping an eye on closely. I'm sure you will be on CQC changes, but also in the care service that you are constantly looking out to make sure that you're keeping up with any latest guidance changes, any legislative changes that's come about. So it's all about you developing your leadership, whatever way it might be, senior team leaders and so on and so forth. It's the same about having systems in place for succession planning. So when you're looking at your staffing levels and roles and deployment, it's about, where my next senior staff going to come from? Is there anybody likely to want that career progression? It's very important as part of your systems, and this is very much is the equality and equity of experience and access to services is really part and parcel, and it's that golden thread that goes all the way through, whether it's equity and equality for people who use your services, and likewise for your staff, right the way from recruitment all the way through to career progression, if that's applicable, or appropriate training and support. So it isn't one thing. There's no one size fits all, because all of you are very unique in your organizations. One thing that works for one won't work for another. But it's about understanding your own services from those perspectives. Next slide, please. I know a lot of you are going to be wanting to know, how do I get to outstanding? And it's a good question, especially it was a lot easier in 2013 when they first brought the rating system out, because we had a definition of what outstanding looked like and what good looked like, and that lasted for quite a long time and was very, very helpful. Gave us all insight into what we were measuring, what we were assessing, what you knew, what you were expected to meet, and what you needed to do to get to the next section. Of course, we've had a little bit of a hiatus with the transformation work with CQC, but they're going to be very soon giving us definitions again, which is great news, of what's outstanding, good, requires improvement, and inadequate. I think everybody could probably work out what inadequate is without an awful lot more knowledge about that. Sometimes it's not so easy to see the difference between a really good RI and a good. But outstanding basically If you start with good and aim always to make sure that the basics are done, that you're compliant with every single one of those regulations, those fundamental standards, and that where you've got gaps or weaknesses, that you have identified them and that you know how you're going to change them and improve them, and whether they're even applicable to your service, because not everything is applicable to your service in those regulations and standards. Once you're happy that you've got your effective leadership, consistency is massively important, particularly in care records. Consistency of entries is very important. Training, consistency of complying with training, very important. There's lots of consistency goes on. You've got that vision and strategy, so we know where we're going to get to on that journey. We're all going to Skegness, and we know how we're going to get there, and everybody's on board. And that everybody feels happy to raise concerns, discuss openly in team meetings, or at least knows where they can go if they want a private, confidential conversation with somebody, feel very confident something will be done about it, and they'll be treated with respect and actively encouraged, because we're all part of the same team. Governance, structured, reliable systems, strong and robust. You've got that engagement. Remember the days years ago, care homes, services, quite often were sort of almost in little islands in the landscape. But you don't live that anymore. You live in a community, you work in a community, you sit in a community. You've got commissioners, you've got voluntary services, you've got service user representatives. It could be all sorts of people around you. Make use. One of the things I would actively recommend that you do is just take another 10 minutes and write down who you think your stakeholders are. For instance, your internal ones are definitely the people who use your services, and your staff. And you may have volunteers at some of your services. These are all your internal stakeholders. You may think of other examples. Your external ones could be those that's commissioning and contracting with you. It could be the local ICB, depending on your service. Sit and think about who are my external stakeholders? Who are my partners? Who do I work with? What relationship do I have with them? Do they understand who we are? Because part of being good is that you have a good relationship with your partners. It might be the local health centre. They are as much a stakeholder as everybody else, and quite often very vital to what you do. And that any engagement that you have internally and externally is absolutely inclusive. Anybody and everybody has a right to have a say, understanding, and that you don't discriminate against anybody as part of consultation. Learning systems. Well, I spent a lot of this talk today about improving and learning, and it is about you working out, right, I have you've done your list, remember, you made a list of all your sources of information, working out, is this of value to me? What's it telling me? What learning? And then have that helicopter view and think, we're going in the right direction. We're sort of halfway to Skegness, and we're in the right direction. Actually, we've had a blip. We need to now rethink that bit. So it is about you being very system-minded on your information, and that does include talking to people, absolutely taking people's views into account, and people outside your organisation. And then keep driving for that improvement. Outstanding. I remember going to a hospital inspection years ago, and one of the consultant advisors turned around, and I think it was an intensive care unit or something like that. And he turned around, he got so excited. He got so excited. He was there as a professional advisor. He got so excited because he'd seen some action that was taking place in this unit, and he just thought, wow, I can't wait to get back to my hospital. Whoops. And I think I pressed a button. I can't wait till I get back to my hospital, because I want to put this in place. So it's, your other services that's of your kind, another care home, domiciliary care, you go in there and think, wow, that's a great idea. I'm going to learn from that. That going that extra mile. So, and part and parcel of going into outstanding is things like your leader is so on it. They know their service inside out. They are capable of doing it. They understand the problems, the challenges, but they have a passion for driving that continuous improvement. You are so keen and embedded about equality, equity across the range of your services and your staff. You've got you could go for external validation. You might want to try and think about accreditations. It could be that you could go for dementia-friendly environments. You might think, do you know what, it would be great. We are an elderly population, would it be good? Or very complex needs, that we might even go for the gold standard framework in end-of-life care. There's a lot of frameworks out there that you might be interested to help improve your services. Or it could be that there is certain specialist training that your staff would gain. You could actually have members of the families and advocates or the people using your services train you in their experience of what the services is, so that you're working in that collaborative way. Those sorts of things would be very much part and parcel of, do you know, this is above and beyond a good result. Next slide, please. So, steps to improve. I've said a few things as we've gone along. I hope you found those helpful. Obviously, I could talk probably for England. My colleagues would agree with that. Strengthen governance oversight. Talked about at length how you can think about doing that. Closing the loop on those audits. Do you remember? Quite good at that side of the cycle. Not so necessarily so good at making sure it's embedded in practice. And go back, do that follow-up view. Managing your risk proactively. So that is about your sources of information, making sure they're strong. Embed that learning and accountability. So go back, make sure it's made a change. And of course, evidencing things like culture and leadership's impact. So again, it's those conversations, it's that safety culture, it's people feeling free to whistleblow, it's people feeling able to suggest improvements. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Julie. I'll take this one, I think. Thanks so much, Julie, as well. That was really interesting. I will come back to you with some questions, both from myself and from some in the Q&A. But how can we at Care for Quality by WorkNest support services in 2026 and beyond? So often many people, call us and they've got this problem, and they're not quite sure where their gaps are or what their manager's doing, or like you say, their governance systems, they're not quite sure the strength of them. Sometimes the best thing to do is get a mock inspection. Get one of our experts into your service to have a look across all of the current quality statements, but those underpinning regulations, and let's see where the gaps are. Where are the risks? Where are your priorities? So you can find where are we excelling? Is actually that outstanding practice? But where are those gaps? Where do we need to focus, both internally and then externally as well? Because we at WorkNest can help you address any gaps. We can help with targeted support from both a CQC or regulatory point of view. We've got very much hands-on support that we can offer across a wide range of support we offer. But also we do include HR and employment law support. We've got health and safety support, fire safety, and policies and procedures as well. So, and then this can lead on to any sort of findings, resolve issues quickly. And we have that hands-on support. We can get a consultant to you or an expert to you in health and safety or HR to help with those needs in your service or remotely. There are literally thousands of options available across what we offer at WorkNest. And then maintain your standards over time. So once you put those things in place, like Julie said, continue to monitor them, continue to stay compliant and inspection ready at all times by making sure that you are on top of that governance across all areas. And we're here to help with that as needed. Next slide, please. I think we're going to just jump into a quick poll. So yeah, just to finish before the Q&A, if we could just do a quick poll, just to let us know if you'd like our team to get in touch with you about our mock inspections, or we do a range of compliance audits. So if there is a specific focus in your service, both in social care and healthcare, please do let us know, because we can usually cater to that for anything bespoke. We do policies and procedures, and we do fixed fee employment law support and fixed fee health and safety support. So please do let us know if you'd like us to get in touch with any of those things. And we'll get the results for those shortly and then move on to the Q&A. So let me have a quick look while we're waiting to see what questions we've been asked. Lovely. Let's have... Lovely. And just while we wait, lots of people are interested in mock inspections and compliance audit support and policies and procedures. So that's great. Thank you. We will pass that on and we will be in touch regarding that. So thank you so much. You might also be interested in our upcoming training. So Julie also leads this. It's well led in practice and it's compliance training for registered managers. And I think it's much more scenario based, Julie, isn't it? A very interactive training, getting you guys to do practical discussions and work within that training regarding this topic. So the next one is at 21st of April. So please just scan the QR code if you'd like more details on that. Lovely. Julie, let's do a question, shall we? So first question, what is CQC's insight to compliance audit and what do they really focus on when they're looking at audits and monitoring checks then?
Right. I always think of audit like a golden thread, really, because from a simple, I won't bore you with the fridge monitoring thing, but it's just an easy one to do. But it could be an infection prevention control audit. But deciding what it is that you need to keep an eye on to keep compliant in case you've got to make changes. It then needs to go somewhere. Where does it go? Who's looking at the outcome? What are you learning from the outcome? Where does that go next? So really, just one audit itself, audits are fantastic tools. We can't do without them. They can be done really well. They can be done not quite so well. The not quite so well are those ones that they're done for the sake of doing it. It's a tick box exercises. And quite often you'll see, let's go back to the fridge, for instance, you'll see a checklist. It could be a cleaning schedule, for instance. You get a checklist and on it, it's mostly done. Then some days there's a bit of gaps, and then another day there's nothing on the next column. Blah, blah, blah. And what CQC was saying is, okay, this provider has identified that they need to do this as part of their compliance. Now, if it was cleaning, for instance, it would be very much part and parcel of prevention, infection control, or it could be about making sure the premises are fit for purpose. It could be also to be checking out staff training on hand hygiene. There's lots of reasons why you do an audit and you put the bits in the audit. But it's then what happens next? What happens next? Does it go to the manager? Has the manager seen it? Is that the normal route of it? If you've got a more senior leadership team, if there's anything in those audits that's coming out over a period of time or needs escalating, do they get to hear about it? So that is that beginning of the cycle. The other one is, of course, CQC are very interested. Okay, so what happened next? And that's really a big question for people, for CQC. You have this system because you've identified it in your organization as an area you need to keep an eye on. It could be something about quality. It could be something about safety. What happens to what your findings say? I always think, sometimes, you could go on, have audits for years and years and years, and it's the same template. And it's done exactly at the same time, or it's done very much by the same people, looking at the same people. If you're getting the same results all the time, which is, you may be perfect, you may be fantastic, but I would start to raise questions thinking, do you know what? We need to review our audit program, our audit template, just to make sure it's given us the information that we want. So challenge yourself about auditing. Don't just take for granted that you've got a template and so it's okay. Because it could be that if you change the time of when you did it or you changed some of the aspects of it, you might be getting different answers. So what I would suggest you do, go away, look at your audits, And some places don't have a program of audits, but I would recommend to you have a program of audits. And all that means is you worked out for the year when you're going to do what. See, is it giving you what you need to know? And then think about what happens to it. Because CQC will come in, they'll see, they may ask for a sample of audit, they may do a building tour, they may look at resource trolleys, they could look at cosh cupboards, they could look at all sorts of things. If there is a system in place to check the audit through audit, you'll say, right, well, what happens next? Does it give you the information that you think, yeah, everything's fine there? Or actually, there's a bit of a problem, what we do. But if you keep repeating the same problem, every single audit, I saw one the other day at a place where it was around filling hand gel. And everything else was great, but every audit said the same thing. Everything is great, hand gel's not completely filled or empty. And it's like a red rag to a bull, isn't it, really? I mean, it's the obvious. What are you doing to sort out your hand gels? And then then it's about looking at the management of it and what's the the risks attached to it, what's the management solution to it. So it is very much the golden thread where it gets reported up. What difference does it make? Where's the action coming down for it? And CQC then can see where your weaknesses lie when they follow it. Is that okay?
Yeah, lovely. Thank you, Julie. That's great. We've got time for a couple more questions, I think. So another one, I think it's a bit difficult one, but is there a single thing you'd recommend to remember to get good at inspection?
Yeah. What I would say to you is, and I recommend this to everybody, stop thinking everything is about inspection. As I said earlier, you're doing this because it's your duty to be compliant. It's not because CQC might come and find you out. You don't MOT your car and pay your tax because the police might come along and stop you on the road. You pay it because it's the law. You do it because it's the law. It's required. And it's the same thing. Your inspection is helpful because it helps you find out where your shortfalls are, what you're doing well, and if you're really, really good, where you're exceeding it. But you should be thinking not necessarily about pleasing CQC, but about your duty all the time. This is about, are we compliant in this? Not to a point where it drives you crazy, but just part and parcel of how do we operate day to day, week to week. CQC, you can come anytime because we know that we take all our services seriously and we've got these things in place from training to consultation to engagement, etc. So yeah, the one thing I would say to you is don't think about last minute trying to get everything ready because gosh, what a massive job. And I've done this at trust level, so believe me, I know. But think about it is this is our ongoing compliance with regulation because we offer a great service and we have a duty of care.
Lovely, thank you. Last one then, just before we do the last slide and finish. What emissions would you say are costly to achieving a good to outstanding rating?
Right. I think if you think back up, we've covered quite a few of them. Obviously, if they find something that you should have spotted yourself and you've done nothing about it, it is about will be looking at what they want to do is come and find you good. I know people don't think they do, but they do. They want to come and find you good. And so they, start off with the good. And then when they find that there's a problem, then it may be that there's a good reason why it's a problem. You could have had a flood. It could have been anything. So when you satisfy yourself that it's not a single issue, actually, this is about a whole host of different things. It could be staffing levels, it could be training, it could be you don't have those systems and processes for reporting, those sorts of things. They will very much, one, check out that you're compliant with what you should be. So safeguarding, for instance, you've got a lead, you've got the policies, your staff are confident what to do to recognise somebody that's vulnerable and might need to make an alert. Your staff have all that knowledge and confidence to use it. And then it's the so what. What did you do about these things? So CQC will be very interested in, particularly on a well-led perspective, on one, you've got everything in view. But if you haven't, where is the problem? Where does the problem lie? So that's their insight. But they do come in, hopefully, wanting to find good services.
Lovely, thank you. Right, I think that's really our hour now. So what we will do is we'll take the rest of the questions and we will answer them, and it will come alongside a blog and or an FAQ. We will follow those up, and they do get sent to Julie, who does review them and does the answers. So we will get those answers to you. Could I just have the next slide if that's possible, please? Lovely. And if you do want support from us, please just scan the QR code. You can ring us if you're an existing client, especially come through to our office. Just get in touch with your normal account manager, or you can call or email us on these email addresses. Or if you're interested in any of our services, please just scan the QR code and we will come back to you. And I think that's it for today. So really, thank you so much, Judy. Thank you for presenting. It was absolutely brilliant, very insightful. And thank you all for attending. We really do appreciate it. So yeah, that's great. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. It's sunny for a change, so yeah, enjoy. Goodbye.